Hey everyone, so I come to you for Tag Tuesday, and today I'm here to do the Reading Taste tag, which was created by Sophia's Thoughts, and I was actually tagged in this by Britta Bowler, so thank you for tagging me, Britta, and I'll leave a link to both Sophia's Thoughts video and Britta's video. So yeah, this is an interesting tag. I will have a lot of answers that are sort of non-answers, because this tag, I get the sense, is designed for people who read a lot of fiction. And something that I've realized over the past couple years in particular is that I actually don't read that much like prose fiction. I read a good number of plays, I read a lot of epic poems and such, and other sort of weird nebulous categories like that aren't really like fiction in the conventional sense, but that are made up stories. But in terms of novels and short stories, I actually don't read all that much. I read mostly nonfiction, at least in terms of page count. In terms of book number, probably there's still more fiction, but in terms of page count, much more nonfiction. And so this is a bit of an odd tag, but anyway, I'll do my best. And the first question is, what is your favorite genre? That's memoir for me. I really like how intimate memoirs can be, and the psychological insights you get into people and into family dynamics and such through memoirs, and how poetic a lot of the best ones can be. They can be very badly written, but so can a lot of fiction. So yeah, definitely memoir is my favorite genre. Number two, what is the most difficult genre for you to read? That would be genre fiction, and I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say with the caveat that I don't disparage genre fiction as an art form, and I certainly don't look down on anyone else for reading genre fiction. However, whenever I try to read a genre novel, somehow I can't get past the feeling that it's kind of a waste of time. I don't know, something about genre novels often feels kind of trivial when I go to read them, and the only exception is when I have either a very specific reason that novel appeals to me, or have a very, very strong recommendation for that novel from someone whose opinion I trust. So, but yeah, genre fiction in general is the one that I have the most difficulty with. Number three, what is your preferred age range? Definitely books for adults. I don't read much YA, I don't read many books for children, but I don't turn my nose up at them. If I were to receive a high recommendation of a YA novel or a children's book, then, I would read it. I read The Wind in the Willows earlier this year, which is sort of a children's book. So, yeah, I don't turn my nose up at them, but I do primarily read books that are just written for adults. Number four, are you a character-driven or a plot-driven reader? Definitely character-driven. If characters are interesting and compelling, then I'm happy to just watch them stand around in the room and talk for 200 to 300 pages, and plot does help. Plot is nice, it's fun, but if the characters are good, then I'm a happy camper. Number five, do you have a preferred perspective? This refers to first, second, third perspective. No, I don't. I believe I've only read like 2 novels and maybe 1 memoir in the second person, but they've been done well both times. But yeah, I don't really care. I feel like if the writer is doing their job well, then it shouldn't really matter what the perspective is. And number 6, I have a similar answer to this one. It's, do you have a preferred tense? Again, no. I don't believe I've ever read a book in the future tense, but I would be fine if a book was written in the future tense. But again, if the writer is doing their job, then it really shouldn't matter what tense the book is in. Number 7, do you like series or standalone books best? Standalone, definitely. I'm intimidated by series. I don't like how a lot of them go on forever and ever, and how every book is 1,200 pages long, and how sometimes certain writers take, 10 years to get the next book out, but yeah. So I find series very intimidating, and I also really appreciate storytellers who can do something really, really powerful with a really limited set of materials, so with a very few characters, very short span. I really appreciate storytellers who can do that, and that is much more likely to happen in a standalone novel than in a 15-book series. Number 8, which would you rather, long or short books? Short books are what I tend to, because I do enjoy getting through books relatively quickly, which is hard for me because I'm kind of a slow reader, so long books take a long time. But again, like long books, sinking into a long book for a really long time, I think is one of the best reading experiences, especially as a buddy read. And so again, I really like long books, but if you were to look at the average book that I pick, it's pretty short. Number 9, which format do you like best? I prefer physical books. There are a lot of advantages to ebooks, it's true, because you can highlight things, write notes that are as long as you want, and then you can sort of email all that stuff to yourself, and then you don't have to like be paging through your book looking for what notes you made. And there are other advantages, but when I read on an e-reader, I never feel like I really process the words properly. For example, when I read nonfiction on an e-reader, I just never feel like I remember anything. And that the same goes for reading on a computer screen. I just don't feel like I process the narrative that the author is going through as well on an e-reader or on a computer screen. For some reason, I don't know, it seems like it should be irrational, but that's just how I feel. Something about starting at a physical page 1 and going through gives me that sense of a narrative or an argument having been made, whereas an e-reader just sort of feels like this sort of nebulous position where you're floating in the middle of space and you don't know where you are, even though you have a little thing at the bottom of the screen telling you that you're X% of the way through the book. Yeah, I just don't process books well through an e-reader, so definitely physical books. And specifically, hardcovers. I don't buy that many hardcovers because they're expensive, so I don't necessarily own a ton, but my preference is generally hardcovers. If I have a choice between a paperback and hardcover, I will take the hardcover because I like how sturdy they are. They're easy to, underline and annotate and all these things. So I like hardcovers. And then number 10, what are you currently reading? So I've got 2 buddy reads going on right now. I'm currently reading Letters to Milena by Franz Kafka, and that's a buddy read with Mark Nash. This is a collection of letters that Franz Kafka wrote to Milena Jasenska, who was his Czech translator, and he was basically madly in love with her, and he wrote all of these sort of self-absorbed letters to her, and it's making for pretty fascinating reading. And then my other buddy read right now is John Brown, Abolitionist, by David S. Reynolds, and this is a pretty thick biography of John Brown, who is most famous for leading a raid on Harper's Ferry, a military fort that he led an attack on in the hopes that he could sort of begin a slave revolt in the South and end slavery that way. And yeah, this is a fascinating read. I'm learning a lot, and it's a buddy read with Patrice Jones, who's doesn't have a channel but is a commenter who many of you I'm sure will know. And then I also started just last night a novella by Leo Tolstoy that's in this collection. This is The Death of Ivan Ilyich and Other Stories, and one of the pieces that's in here is a novella called The Forged Coupon, and I'm only 10 pages in, but it's about a young boy who forges this coupon to pay off a debt to a friend, and his forging of that coupon basically sets off this series of events that leads to terrible things happening, completely without the boys intending it to happen. So I'm sure it'll be interesting, but I'm not really far enough to comment. And then 2 books that I'm chipping away at. One is the Oxford Anthology of African American Poetry. So I'm just over a third of the way through, finding a lot of new and interesting poets. And then finally, another one that I'm getting through slowly is The Lives of the Great Composers by Harold Schoenberg. And this is a really good book. I'm reading it very slowly, though. So every chapter is on one composer, 1 or 2 or sometimes 3 composers. And I will, after each chapter, I'll stop and then listen to some of the music of the composers, some of their greatest works, and I'm finding that very enriching. So, yeah, anyway, that's the reading taste tag. Thank you for tagging me, Britta, and I will let you all go. Bye, guys.